Okay. First of all, I want to put out a disclaimer that this is my opinion. Uh, what I'm going to give you here is my opinion. It's based on research that I've done and a perspective that I have towards um, believers believing in things. I did a teaching, I believe it was about 13, 14 years ago. I think it may have been even longer than that. That called Why We Believe What We Believe. So this is not like a new thing that we're doing this video series called Believers, Demons, and Angels, and I said, okay, I'll teach on believers, and went out and did the research. Now, this has been a main study of mine for a long time, which has actually branched out into several other things that all incorporate. So, the last time, this is Believers 2, part 2, I guess we could call it. And the first time I gave definitions of words like believer and for I don't have my notes up, but being naive and gullible, and there's a word called credulous, meaning that you believe every wind of doctrine. You just let anything come into you without checking it out. People don't be credulous, whatever. But let me just preface a lot of this by saying that some people just literally can't help it. In a lot of ways, it's the way they were raised. It's and it does, believe it or not, there is a chemical part of our brain that the hypothalamus and different things in our brain that do regulate our emotions, our feelings, and our belief systems. And so we can't literally can't put anybody down, and we shouldn't anyway, but we can't put any people down for believing a specific way. But one of the real huge things with me in my research and my thoughts about this, the Lord and I have talked many times about this. I've prayed uh, in depth on this because of my views, being a realist, being someone that deals with things as they come upon me, as life is presented in front of me. I deal with that the way it is right then and there. I am not a spiritualist whatsoever at all. As a matter of fact, I have a real hard time with people that just see everything in the spirit. It's so what's the old saying, being too so spiritually minded that you're no earthly good. And I'm a big believer in that we know people that see everything from the spirit realm. And we know how we should know as mature human beings, not even as mature religious people, but as mature human beings, we should be able to discern the unbalance in that we need to realize that the Lord has placed us physically and mentally on this earth to deal with that right here. And though there is a spirit world, and I even did a show one time that dealt with God as king of the universe, the physical universe and the spiritual universe. And so we need to recognize those things. And this video series is called Believers, Demons, and Angels. And demons and angels are literally a part of that spiritual world. But what is a believer? A believer is a person that believes something. I mean, come on, I don't even have to give you the definition of the word believer or to believe. We all know that is such a generic word that it makes no difference what society you're from or what the language is, how it's translated. It's going to be the same thing. It's what we accept as truth or fact. We believe that then, and whether or not, there's a couple of different ways you can believe something just based on the fact that somebody said it, you read it, you heard it, you watched it on a video, all those different things. You can believe it, or you could believe it because you physically experienced that thing. You saw it with your own eyes, and there was nothing to spiritualize with it, or you experienced it because it's even a spiritual thing. You could experience that because God placed it in your spirit realm of your life, your soul. It's part of you. You can believe that. So there's a couple of different ways to believe something. One of the things that has always kind of in that I meditate on these things. I talk to God about a lot of the things that happen in the world and the things that I hear and what I experience and that type of thing. So I ask God for balance constantly. Another thing that I ask God for is to reveal all things that are hidden, because I do believe that there are a lot of things in not only in the physical manifestation of spiritual things that we see in our everyday life, but that there are things that happen in the spiritual world that are that unless we can discern spirits and unless we recognize these things, we'll never be aware of. So I ask God to reveal things that are hidden to me so that I can get a balance and not be somebody that just lives out my life based on, like I say, I'm a realist. So I don't want to just not understand spiritual things or be a spiritualist and not really pay attention to reality that's right in front of them. And reality is based on my definition there in speaking of this is reality is based on, hey, God placed us here in this physical world for a physical reason. And even though we understand spiritual things to some extent because of what God reveals to us, then we can actually get out of balance in those things. So anyway, one of the things that I pay attention to a lot is that of making a choice of what I'm going to believe. And that, I think, is where the immaturity comes from for a lot of people, is that they don't really make a choice. So how do you make a choice? Well, I mean, if it's right there in front of your face, then, I see a bird out on the bird feeder out my window right now. I mean, I don't need to make a choice. That bird is out there. I know it is. I don't need to make a choice on that. But there are things in our lives that come across our path that are these things, will these things affect what's going to happen in my future? And of course, my family. I'm responsible for my wife. All our kids are grown and they are now responsible for themselves. So I have to be sure that I've raised my children right so that they make good decisions and they believe the right things too. I am very blessed to know that our children are blessed and are making some good decisions. But let's see, how do I say this? One of the things that concerns me about what people believe is that it's where you're raised, it's what you've gone through in your life up to the point where you do make those choices. In, for instance, different countries and different belief systems, and that's another real big thing that I think people get mixed up on a lot of time are uh, what is a religion and what is a belief system. Because within a specific religion, meaning what they believe in the spiritual realm that concerns them in their own physical life, and that's my definition of religion, is that you have belief systems within that. Because for instance, the messianic lifestyle or the messianic movement, a lot of people call it, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, each one of these have people that believe a specific way or doctrines within that. So that's a belief system. And what you find is that people have to make a choice. And sometimes it's a choice of what's real and what is fantasy, what is something that could be true, and how is it going to affect my future as I go forward? I mean, each one of us, most of the people that come out of or go into the Messianic lifestyle have come out of a Christian lifestyle. And I don't call myself a Christian simply because I don't follow their belief system. To identify yourself as a Christian means that you identify with the belief system of doing Easter and everything that has to do with it, Christmas and everything that has to do with it, covenants and those covenants being different. There's a lot of other things that are the same, but I won't identify with that. So I don't identify with that belief system. And so I have to make a choice of where I'm going to go with this. It's interesting. My wife and I just watched the movie Castaway a couple of weeks ago, and in this movie, if you've seen it, and most everybody's seen this, so I can explain it a little bit. During a man is marooned on a desert island, and he's by himself for 4 years. And he used to be a FedEx corporate guy, and he was on a plane that was transporting a bunch of FedEx packages, and it went down in the ocean, and he got washed up on shore, and a lot of the packages washed up, and one of them was I believe it was a soccer ball. Well, he opened up this soccer ball, and through a course of several different things, the soccer ball became a friend of his. He called Wilson, and Wilson was with him most of that time, and his reality kind of changed in that whether or not he truly ever believed the soccer ball was an actual real entity that could hear him, talk to him. In the movie, you'll see that he literally feels that he gets something back from the soccer ball by talking to him. Well, all of that understanding goes to when he does actually leave the island. He has built a raft. He's going to try to get himself rescued one way or another, and he's out in the middle of the ocean. He falls asleep, and when he wakes up, this soccer ball, Wilson, has drifted off into the ocean, and now he has to make a decision of whether or not to stay here or let that soccer ball go, because he's got a rope. He swims out to get the soccer ball. It's just a few feet beyond reach, and he's at the end of his rope. He actually loses the rope. And if he keeps going after that soccer ball, he is going to lose his raft, and he is going to die. he has to mentally make a decision to believe in the raft being reality or the soccer ball being fantasy. And each day of our lives, it may not be that extreme of life and death, but we still have to make a decision on what we believe in reality, or is it fantasy? Now, at this point, and one of the other things I mentioned is that um, how you were raised. In, for instance, in different societies and different belief systems, are all societies, all belief systems, all different religions. Obviously, there are people born. And once that person is born, they are raised by parents that believe a certain way. And one of the things that I want to bring here as quickly as I can is to help you understand that the way you were raised does have to do with the way you believe. And the teaching that I put together, several years ago, is called Why We Believe What We Believe. There was a part of it in the beginning that I called creation ism, but it also helps you to put a perspective on why you believe a certain way and why somebody else believes a certain way. And I want to go through that as quickly as I possibly can. I'm not going to give you the whole thing. The whole thing's probably a good hour, but I want to go over the main points. To first consider why man believes what he believes, we have to consider what, in fact, he does believe. And so I want to bring to your attention the different things that are understood as a belief system throughout this planet, and the religiosity, is that the word, of different systems. This is just to give you an idea of the different belief systems throughout the world. We've probably heard of cosmology, a branch of astrophysics. People believe this as a religion. Of course, everybody's heard of the Big Bang. There's actually a Big Bang 1, Big Bang 2, Big Bang 3, but they believe that this is a way that the Earth started, and literally worship this, so to say. There's the steady state theory, asserts that although the universe is expanding, it nevertheless does not change it over time. There's a quasi-steady state cosmology. The idea suggests that there may be expansions and pockets of creation. Evolution, everybody's heard of evolution. That it's just gone from a tadpole to who we are today. There's the natural selection that by a slight variation, everything is preserved. We have common descent. All organisms on Earth are descended from a common ancestor or ancestral gene pool. Ancient astronauts, it's believed, these are real. I didn't make these up. Generally refers to extraterrestrials who came to Earth and were in some way responsible for seeding the human race. Atlantis, everybody's heard of Atlantis. That is ancient astronauts. And now what I'm going to give you here is I'm going to actually read off, I think it's 10 or 11 different belief systems and how they believe the Earth was created. And I want you to listen to these specifically, and I'm only going to read like the first line of each one because it can get in depth. But I want you to hear, we'll talk about it when I'm done. Okay, first is called Celtic myths of creation. In the first winter, a mighty giant was created from hoarfrost, and when fire came, he melted. From the enormous bulk of his body came the world. Second, Chinese myths of creation. Pan Ku. He is hatched from a cosmic egg. Half of the shell is above him in the sky, and the other half below him as the earth. Australian myths of creation. In the beginning, the earth was a bare plain. All was dark. There was no life, no death. The sun, the moon, and the stars slept beneath the earth. Egyptian myths of creation. In the beginning, before there was any land of Egypt, all was darkness, and there was nothing but a great waste of water called Noon. The power of Noon was such that there arose out of the darkness a great shining egg, and this was Re, or R-E, Re. Greek myths of creation. In the beginning, chaos, an amorphous, gaping void encompassing the entire universe and surrounded by an unending stream of water, ruled by the god Oceanus. This is real, people. People believe this today. Hungarian myths of creation. The seeds of the holy sea break out of your shell. The eternal sea's waves are waving and rolling. Their waves are rocking and the foam is hissing. There is no earth yet anywhere, but in the immeasurable heights above in his golden house sits the great heavenly Father on his golden throne. From India, the Vedic traditions of India tell us that we are now in the fourth age of mankind. The Vedas called them the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and we are now, according to their scriptures, in the Iron Age. As we approach the 20th century, both Native Americans, Mayans, and Incas prophecies claim that we are coming to an end of the age. Japan. Before the heavens and the earth came into existence, all was chaos, unimaginably limitless and without definite shape or form. Eon followed eon, then lo, out of this boundless, shapeless mass, something light and transparent rose up and formed. Something light and transparent rose up and formed the heaven. Judeo-Christian. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters. Okay, Mesoamerican myths of creation. The sacred book of the Maya contains within its creation story of tale of the destruction of the first beings by a flood. This flood differs from others that is not punishment, but rather a remedy for faulty creation. Faulty creation. The Incan Indians. In the beginning, Lord Kon-Tiki Varoka, prince and creator of all things, emerged from the void and created the earth and heaven. Then he created animals and a race of giants who lived in eternal darkness, as he had neglected to create a source of light. Mongolia. Long ago, Father Heaven had two sons. One became the Lord of the upper world, and the other became the Lord of the lower world. At that time, blah, blah, blah. Native American myths. In the beginning, there was no earth to live on, but up above, in the great blue, there was a woman who dreamed dreams. One night she dreamed about a tree covered with white blossoms, a tree that brightened up the sky when its flowers opened, but brought a terrible darkness as they closed again. Other Native American myths. In the land above the sky, a strong wind uprooted this tree. This tree. Sky woman walking by fell through the hole left by the tree. Okay, interesting, huh? That's about 10 or 11, I didn't count there, of different belief systems on how the earth was created. Now, anybody that was born in any of these countries, anybody that was raised amongst parents that believe these things, are also going to believe these things until they reach the age of accountability where they can search it out for themselves. My point on this is that our belief system and what we believe is totally up to us. It's our choice to believe these things. And if you don't search out all of them or understand that there is something more than just Judaism, Christianity, the Messianic lifestyle, and a couple of others. Unless you realize this, why are you believing what you believe? You need to go to God, talk to God, and have a conversation and a relationship with God, and recognize what it is exactly that you do believe. And within your own religion, within your own belief system, what is your belief system? We all need to recognize this and acknowledge it, and go from there. Otherwise, who knows where your future lies. And that's about what I've got there. I mean, obviously I've got just pages and pages and pages on all of this kind of stuff. And once again, unless we literally think about this and recognize it, some people are out there. Now, one thing you might have noticed is I threw the Judeo-Christian belief in the middle of all of that. So if you're listening to every one of those, let's just say you've never heard of Christianity, but you read like those 11 different things, wouldn't what Judeo-Christians' belief system of creating the world sound just as bizarre as all the rest of them? Well, don't answer that. I'm just trying to get you to think about what you believe. That's my point here, is I'm only trying to get you to think about it. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying, think about what you believe.
Well, I found it very interesting, though, even as you're listening to them, listing those different beliefs, many of them had a common theme, which goes back to, I mean, it's not really talking about the different beliefs, except in that when you go back to the beginning, the way things were at the beginning, the way we believe, Mr. and Mrs. Adam, the earth created in 7 days, there's some common words that have been confiscated by these other quote unquote religions and belief systems and then twisted. And we find that even with the flood and Gilgamesh. I mean, people have, and it goes through that with different aspects of Christianity. You take some truth and then you twist it and make a new religion, or you make a new belief system, and you say it enough times and you get people believing it. And that's another thing. You say something enough time, even to yourself, you begin to believe the lie. But it all goes back. We should constantly be examining, why do we believe what we believe? What is the foundation of it? What are the roots of it? Where did it start? Is it truth? And we should be on our face. Now, if you're praying to a God, I'm sorry, if you're praying to your God and it's not the God of heaven and earth, Yahweh, our Elohim, Yehovah, Yeshua, Jesus, then you're going to be praying to demonic entity and you're going to get whatever answer the enemy wants. But
you're struggling to find the words to say, Sandy, and I agree. I agree, though. Go ahead.
But truth is truth, and people can choose to believe what they believe, but it can still lead you right to the pits of hell. And there's one truth. And there's not, the world would try to make you believe that all of it's all good. It's not all good.
That's right.
But soon people will find that out. And the death is promised to everyone. I like what Sherry said, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Judeo-Christian creation was first. Then the others took from that and made their own religion. That's exactly what I was trying to say, Sherry. Thank you. Anyway.
This is why we're supposed to test everything. You got in 1 Thessalonians, I can't remember what chapter, but it's verse 22 or 20. It says to test everything. I can't find it now. All of a sudden, my computer went, yee. Okay. But anyway, test it. You're to test everything, and the way we test everything is through His Word. and it's interesting because a lot of people believe these things, but yet they don't have like proof, so to speak. We have more proof than they do, but it's difficult to prove it in the flesh completely. Like, science, I'm going to throw science in there. Science, a lot of scientific stuff is theory. It's not fact. Like evolution is theory. If you do read Darwin's books, which a lot of people have not read his books, but if you read his books, he states it's a theory. I'm not giving fact. I'm giving my theory, my thoughts, my opinion. And that's what a lot of religions start off with, is somebody's fact and opinion. Just like in Christianity, there's a lot of different denominations because somebody doesn't like this. I don't like this part right here where speaking in tongues and prophesying and stuff, so I'm going to become a Southern Baptist. That's their thoughts and their theories. And this is why we are to test everything with God's word and make sure that it is balanced. Like you said earlier, Mark, balance. It has to balance with God's word. And he has us in the flesh, but we're also a spirit. Make sure it balances, because everything that happens in this, I believe, my opinion, I believe that everything that happens in the spirit realm happens also in the flesh.
Right. I want to jump in here with what Sherry said. She said, we better know what we believe and why, because if we don't, we can be overset in our faith. She said, we do not want to be tossed about by every wind of doctrine, but our faith is anchored in the word of Elohim, which is true and been shown to be shown truth in many and varied ways. Here is where the natural meets the supernatural. The Holy Spirit gives life to the word that is preached. And Rabbi Rav Shaul said in 1 Corinthians 2:4, and my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. She goes on to say, our faith is also based on our relationship with Yeshua, Jesus, difference between knowing about him and knowing him. Plus, we are the only faith that believes in the resurrection of the dead. Now, you may say, why do I throw Jesus and God in there and some things like that? Because guess what, people? I pray that it's not just people that say they're Hebrew roots, Messianic, whatever, listening. We always need to be mindful of that. We've got to get out of our box. So, etc. But thank you, Sherry. All of what you said is good.
It is. I just caution everybody to understand that there is a definite difference between the word believe and faith. And so many times we interchange those two words and what they mean, and they don't mean the same things. And so we have to be real careful with that. My whole thing is that we do often say, I believe this. And then just in common everyday language, even when not talking about anything that has to do with our lifestyle or our religion or God or anything like that, we'll say, I believe. And I challenge you to let that be a trigger phrase in your life and think about what you're saying when you say that, because you are making a strong confession when you say, I believe, and then whatever follows that, you're actually making a confession. Be careful what you say, what you believe, and whether or not you really do believe that or not.
Very good. Very good.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.